Then we do go to South Carolina, where we've done really well, where I've done well. We have a great governor and lieutenant governor and great everything, because almost every one of them have endorsed me. 2 great senators, which is hard. I mean, did you ever think that she actually appointed you, Tim? And think of it, appointed, and you're the senator of his state, and she endorsed me. You must really hate her. No, it's a shame. It's a shame. Uh-oh.
I just love you.
No, that's why he's a great politician. That's why he's a great politician.
And, you know, the politics of running against democracy, the politics of getting Americans to distrust elections and ultimately not want them anymore, that is inextricably intertwined with getting Americans to distrust the legal system, to not trust the courts and not trust the justice system anymore, to not take it seriously, to not obey its dictates, to not respect any of its rules. And Barb's book, more than anything, helped me see the connection of the connection between those 2 points, between getting rid of elections and getting rid of the rule of law. You have to get rid of the rule of law, right? You have to undermine and problematize it so that you can get away with what you are trying to do to elections. Right? And this is all over the news right now. Just on Friday, the Wisconsin Ethics Commission referred a Trump PAC and multiple Republican officials for felony prosecution for their role in a Wisconsin scheme to punish a Republican leader in the Wisconsin state legislature who Trump thought didn't fight hard enough to throw out the election results in that state. We want you to throw out those election results. You don't do a good enough job. We're now going to, allegedly, commit crimes in order to turf you out of your position. Recommended for prosecution as of Friday. Last week, the U.S. Supreme Court refused to throw out the sanctions, the professional sanctions against Trump lawyers Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood for their efforts to overthrow the election results. Mike Pillow, last week he was ordered by a judge to pay up in a contest he held where he promised $5 million cash to anybody who could disprove his claims that a foreign government helped steal the election for Biden. Somebody did disprove those claims, and now a court says Mr. Pillow has to pay. He, of course, does not want to pay, but a court says he must. In Georgia, the right-wing group True the Vote that apparently ginned up all the false claims about supposed problems in the Georgia elections in 2020. They made hay with those claims for not just weeks around the election, but months and ultimately years. But when it got put through the legal system, they had to admit to a judge that no, they don't actually have any evidence to back up their claims that there was fraud in Georgia. Trump and multiple Georgia co-defendants are now going to go on trial for trying to overthrow the election result in Georgia, which they did by citing this fake evidence from this group, True the Vote. What will happen in that case? Will that case come to trial? Trump and his co-defendants' best hope is not their defense, but their unrelated personal counteroffensive to try to discredit and disqualify the prosecutor to get her thrown off the case. The rule of law is protecting democracy. We've got to get rid of the rule of law.
When you look at the 30 states, are there certain areas across the country that kind of spoke to you louder and clearer in terms of these homicides are happening more in the South or more in the East or more in the West?
So what we found is, from a trend perspective, is that the homicides really were highest in the Midwest and in the Northeast. And what we found is those really do, when we looked at pay equity, and so the state that had the highest rates of homicide disparities is that of Wisconsin. Wisconsin also ranks second to last in wealth inequities. And so it's not just the pay inequities, it's educational inequities. We're also looking at home ownership inequities. We're also looking at wealth management and disbursement. And so it's not just the pay, it is what's going on economically across the different factors.
And I also read that one of the things you said is that we really need to be speaking about this more, because once we open up the discussion, then that leads to different results. I want you to stay with us, Dr. Waller.
No more consequential figure in Republican politics in the modern era than Kentucky's senior senator Addison Mitchell McConnell, better known as Mitch, even better known as the longest serving Republican Senate leader in the minority or in the majority in U.S. history, and also the man who, more than anyone else, broke the United States Senate. And now that he's burnt the House down, today he announced his work is done. He is stepping down as the Senate Republican leader in November. But the fact remains, no individual has done more damage to the Senate than Mitch McConnell. No single individual has inflicted more harm on the reputation of the Senate than Mitch McConnell. And no one in the modern era, Republican or Democrat, has wielded power in a way that is more destructive to the American people or more shameful than Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell could well be called the Newt Gingrich of the Senate, in that he broke the Senate in the same way Gingrich broke the House during the Clinton era, twisting its purpose from one of legislating for the country's good to one bent solely for the purpose of manipulating the rules, for the purpose of seizing and holding on to absolute partisan power. Mitch McConnell led his party to use a single tactic more than any other to seize that power: the filibuster. And while McConnell tried to deny that the filibuster has a racist historical taint, before Mitch McConnell, it had been used for nothing more often than to stop racial progress. In fact, both the longest single-speaker filibuster and the longest multiple-speaker filibuster in U.S. history were launched to stop the Civil Rights Acts of 1957 and 1964, respectively, according to the Senate Historical Office. But it was Mitch McConnell, not some segregationist senator from the 1950s or 60s, who presided over the largest number of Senate filibusters during the Obama administration, of course. And Mitch McConnell bragged that the purpose of the constant obstruction was to try to kneecap the first black president of the United States.
Our top political priority over the next 2 years should be to deny President Obama a second term.
Ha ha ha. Well, he failed at that because President Obama is and was a much better politician than he is. But Mitch did manage to stop President Obama from fulfilling a number of campaign promises, which died as a result of the filibuster. From bipartisan immigration reform, backed, by the way, by the late John McCain and even Marco Rubio of Florida, to gun reform that could have prevented some of the hundreds of gun massacres that have occurred since Mitch McConnell gained control of the Republican caucus in the Senate, to bills securing voting rights and women's right to control their own bodies. On that score, it was Mitch McConnell who boasted that he stopped President Obama from fulfilling his constitutional role of filling a vacant Senate seat, getting his caucus to refuse to even meet with Obama's Supreme Court nominee, Merrick Garland, after the death of Antonin Scalia. Instead, Mitch McConnell stole the seat for the next president, reality show star Donald Trump, for whom McConnell flipped the rules again to ensure that Trump would fulfill his role as Leonard Leo's ignorant bagman by appointing 2 more Federalist Society justices to the court so that Samuel Alito could finally achieve his and his fellow far-right Christian nationalists' dream of overturning Roe v. Wade, and Clarence Thomas could fulfill his sad, self-hating dream of killing affirmative action because it made him feel sad when he didn't get high-paying law firm job offers after Yale Law School. And so Clarence could debase himself by writing down on paper that the 14th Amendment had nothing to do with black freedmen. And so Mitch McConnell could retire, knowing that he and Donald Trump had together created a far-right wing judiciary that would inflict pain on this country for generations. And he even bragged about it.
I was shocked that former President Obama left so many vacancies and didn't try to fill those positions.
I'll tell you why. I was in charge of the of what we did the last 2 years of the Obama administration.
I will give you full credit for that. And by the way, take a bow.
Ha, 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 ha. So today in Alabama, women who will suffer because of Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump's woman-hating Supreme Court rallied against a state court ruling that will cut off access to IVF for couples who want children.
They can thank Mitch McConnell for that help, as can every woman or little girl who will suffer and die because of the Dobbs ruling. Mitch McConnell will complete his career as minority leader thanks to the Dobbs ruling. But he finished off his legacy by securing the acquittals of Donald Trump on impeachment charges he knew were true. That Donald Trump attempted to strong-arm the government of Ukraine to cook up fake accusations against Joe Biden before the 2020 election, and that Trump staged an attempted coup on January 6, 2021.